Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room and instantly shift the energy without even saying a word? What is it about them that makes others pause, turn, and pay attention? Is it their voice, their status, or could it be something much deeper, something more subtle yet far more powerful? In a world obsessed with being heard, the real masters of influence are those who know when not to speak. They move differently. They listen more than they talk. They respond without reacting. And in doing so, they project an inner strength that commands attention and respect without demanding it. This video explores the often overlooked art of presence, not through noise, but through stillness. Inspired by the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy, we'll dive into how silence, self-regulation, and deliberate restraint can become your greatest assets in personal growth, leadership, and social dynamics. If you've ever wanted to stand out without trying, to influence without force, and to move through life with unshakable confidence, this message is for you. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Join a growing community of individuals dedicated to mastering themselves and leading with purpose in a loud and reactive world. 1. The silent power. Most people ignore, in a world driven by noise, constant communication, and an obsession with being heard, silence has become one of the most undervalued, yet most commanding, forms of expression. We live in a culture where people equate talking with power. The louder someone is, the more attention they seem to get. But attention and respect are not the same. Noise might get you noticed, but silence, intentional, powerful silence, makes people remember. The Stoics knew this. They understood that silence wasn't weakness or submission. It was strength under control. It was presence without performance. It was choosing not to engage in the chaotic energy of the crowd, but instead cultivating stillness that speaks louder than words ever could. Let's consider a modern example. Picture a high-ranking executive at a corporate board meeting. Everyone at the table is trying to pitch ideas, interrupting each other, fighting to be heard. But one individual sits quietly, observing, absorbing, not rushing to speak. When he finally does speak, the room goes silent, not because of his volume, but because of the weight of his words. People listen, not just out of respect for his title, but because he has earned a reputation. When he speaks, it matters. And because he speaks sparingly, his words carry more value. That is the silent power most people ignore. Silence, when intentional, becomes a statement. It communicates composure, confidence, and self-assurance. When you are silent in moments where others expect reaction, especially emotionally charged situations, it sends a message. I am not easily moved. I am not controlled by external chaos. I am in command of myself. This kind of presence can be unsettling to those who rely on emotional outbursts or verbal dominance to assert control. Your calm silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to confront their lack of discipline. And when they react, it often exposes their insecurities and need for validation. Meanwhile, your restraint tells a different story, one of inner strength. This doesn't mean you should be silent all the time. Rather, it means learning to choose your moments, to speak not because you're uncomfortable with the pause, but because what you say adds true value. People who speak constantly tend to dilute their impact, but those who speak with intention create a gravitational pull. Others lean in, wanting more, paying closer attention. There's a reason military leaders, Zen monks, and powerful figures throughout history have all emphasized the value of silence. It's not just about saying less, it's about observing more, listening more, learning more. When you're silent, you are gathering information, reading people, analyzing the dynamics of a situation. You're not on the defensive. You're on the strategic offensive, building a deeper understanding before you make your move. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This isn't just advice. It's a mindset. It's a way of carrying yourself that transforms your presence in every room you walk into. Think about the people in your life who have made a lasting impression. Chances are, they weren't the ones constantly talking or trying to impress. They were the ones who held space, who made you feel seen or evaluated with just a look, a pause, a well-timed moment of silence. You can start practicing this today. In your next conversation, resist the urge to fill every gap with words. Instead, observe. When someone says something provocative, pause before responding. When you walk into a room, don't rush to make small talk. Be still. Make eye contact. Let your energy speak first. Remember, silence isn't emptiness. It's potential. It's the space where presence is built. And in that space, you can establish authority without force, dominance without aggression, and respect without even saying a word. Mastering silence is mastering self. And once you own your silence, your presence will no longer go unnoticed. It will become unforgettable. 2. Own your emotions or be owned. One of the core teachings of Stoicism, and a fundamental pillar of self-mastery, is this: you cannot control the world, but you can control your reaction to it. This simple truth holds immense power. Because the reality is, if you don't own your emotions will own you. In our daily lives, most people are constantly reacting. A rude comment triggers anger. A setback triggers anxiety. A moment of rejection brings on despair. These reactions feel automatic, like reflexes. But Stoicism challenges us to pause and ask a deeper question. Are these emotions guiding you, or are they misleading you? Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and a Roman emperor, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What he meant was that true power comes not from controlling people, situations, or outcomes, but from mastering the inner landscape of your own thoughts and feelings. This is the difference between external power and internal power. External power is circumstantial. It depends on status, wealth, position, but internal power is lasting. It can't be taken away, and it begins with emotional discipline. Let's break it down. Imagine someone insults you in front of others. Your ego might flare up, urging you to retaliate, to prove your worth, to defend your pride. But in that instant, if you allow the emotion to lead, you've already lost control. You've handed your power over to someone else, someone who may not even deserve your attention. Now flip the script. Imagine instead that you stay calm. You look at them without reaction, you breathe, you say nothing, or you respond with measured composure. Who's really in control now? That's the essence of Stoic emotional mastery, not suppressing emotions, but regulating them. It's about choosing your response instead of being enslaved by your reaction. In modern society, emotional impulsiveness is often mistaken for authenticity. We're told to speak our truth and let it out. But the Stoics would ask, at what cost? When your emotions dictate your behavior, they can damage relationships, ruin opportunities, and diminish your authority. On the other hand, when you can remain centered in the face of provocation, discomfort, or pressure, people notice. They feel your steadiness. They sense that you are grounded, that you don't flinch when others expect you to fold. And that, more than any loud display, earns lasting respect. Self-regulation is not about becoming cold or emotionless. In fact, the most emotionally intelligent people are deeply in tune with their inner world. They simply refuse to be ruled by it. They create space between stimulus and response. That space is where power lives. Think of emotional discipline as a muscle. The more you practice staying calm when things go wrong, whether it's traffic, a rude message, or a failed plan, the stronger that muscle becomes. Over time, you begin to notice how little things don't shake you, how criticism doesn't sting the way it used to, how you can hold silence instead of reacting out of anger. This doesn't mean you never feel emotions. It means you understand them, you manage them, and you respond. You don't just react. This calm, controlled energy creates presence. It commands respect. It makes you someone others look to when things get chaotic. You become an anchor in the storm, not a leaf blowing in the wind. So how do you begin to own your emotions? Start small. The next time you feel triggered, breathe, pause, ask yourself, is this emotion useful? Is this response in alignment with the person I want to be? If not, redirect, reframe, reflect. Over time, this practice builds a kind of unshakable confidence, because when you're no longer at the mercy of your emotions, you become trustworthy, not just to others, but to yourself. And in the journey of self-improvement, that is everything. To master your presence, you must first master your emotional state. Because only when you're no longer ruled by the external world can you begin to influence it, not through force, but through your calm, unwavering strength. 3. Strategic silence. The art of not reacting. Silence is not merely the absence of speech. It is a conscious decision, a tactical move, and one of the most underutilized tools in human interaction. In a world driven by reaction, urgency, and impulsiveness, the ability to remain silent in key moments is both rare and powerful. Strategic silence is not passive. It is one of the most active and deliberate choices you can make. Most people believe they need to have an answer for everything, that every comment, every insult, every challenge must be met with an immediate response. But this constant need to reply reveals a lack of inner control. It shows that the person has not yet mastered the ability to regulate their own energy or emotions. They are, in essence, owned by the situation. The Stoics teach us the opposite. They teach us to create space between stimulus and response. That space, that pause, is where wisdom lives. It's in that moment that you evaluate. Is this worth responding to? What is this person really trying to get from me? If I say, nothing, what power do I hold? Strategic silence allows you to observe instead of react. And observation is power. When you choose silence, you open yourself to a deeper understanding of the situation. You watch facial expressions, body language, tone of voice. You study the energy in the room. You ask yourself, why are they saying this? What are they trying to provoke in me? This silence is not a void. It is data collection. It is mental preparation. And it is strength. Take, for instance, an argument. In most disagreements, both parties are rushing to make their point, cut the other off, and win the conversation. But the person who remains quiet, who listens fully, who holds eye contact without speaking, often unnerves the other person. They're expecting a fight. Your calm silence breaks their pattern. It forces them to sit with their own words. It often leads them to expose more of their thoughts, motivations, and sometimes even their insecurities. In that silence, the truth comes out. Strategic silence also protects your energy. Not every situation deserves your reaction. Not every person deserves your explanation. When you withhold your words, you conserve your power. You choose where and when to expend your energy, rather than letting the world pull it from you. This approach also builds credibility. When people observe that you don't speak impulsively, that you wait, consider, and then speak with purpose, they begin to value what you say. You become someone whose voice is taken seriously. Because you don't waste words, you don't speak just to fill silence. You speak when it matters. Furthermore, silence disarms manipulation. Many people are skilled at using emotional triggers to get reactions out of others. guilt, fear, anger, shame. They bait you into reacting because once you do, they control the game. But if you say nothing, if you pause, smile slightly, or look at them without a flinch, you reclaim control. They can't move you. They can't pull you into the drama. Your silence becomes a shield. This doesn't mean you never speak up. It means you choose when to speak, and more importantly, why. You speak when your words will have the most impact. You speak when you're grounded, not reactive. And sometimes you choose silence precisely because it communicates more than any sentence ever could. In negotiation, for example, silence is a known tactic. When an offer is made, the person who speaks first often loses ground. A well-timed pause can create discomfort, urgency, or second-guessing in the other party. That tension created by silence can be used to your advantage, not to manipulate, but to maintain power and presence. The next time you're tempted to jump into a debate, defend yourself, or correct someone, stop. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Does my silence speak louder? Because once you understand that not every situation demands your voice, you unlock a new level of influence. You stop operating on the emotional battlefield, and instead, you move with strategic precision. In the end, strategic silence is about control, not of others, but of yourself. And the person who has that kind of control becomes impossible to manipulate, hard to provoke, and impossible to ignore. 4. Presence begins with stillness. We often think that presence comes from what we say, from our eloquence, our charisma, or our ability to dominate a room with our voice. But the truth is far more subtle and profound. True presence begins not with sound, but with stillness. Stillness is not just the absence of movement, it's the embodiment of composure, control, and confidence. It's the unspoken energy that enters the room before you do. People feel it. They notice it, even if they can't quite explain what it is. And when you learn to cultivate stillness, you create a magnetic presence that speaks louder than words ever could. Think of the most powerful individuals you've observed, whether in real life, history, or fiction. They rarely fidget. They don't rush. They move with purpose. Every gesture is deliberate. Their posture is upright, but relaxed. Their gaze is steady. There's a calm assurance in how they carry themselves that says, I don't need to prove anything. I am already in control. That is stillness. And it is often the difference between someone who commands respect and someone who demands it. The Stoics placed enormous value on this kind of self-possession. To them, external calm was a reflection of internal discipline. Marcus Aurelius didn't need to shout orders to be obeyed. His steady, composed demeanor was an outward sign of the inner fortress he had built. He had trained himself not to be ruled by fear, anger, or anxiety, and that training radiated outward in the form of calm authority. In everyday life, your physical presence is a mirror of your internal state. When you're anxious or uncertain, it shows in your hands, your posture, your breathing. You fidget, talk too fast, avoid eye contact. People can feel that energy. It undermines your credibility, whether you realize it or not. But when you are still, when you are centered and intentional, your energy becomes grounded. You become a source of stability in a world full of frantic motion. And people are drawn to that. They respect it. In fact, they crave it. This doesn't mean being stiff or emotionless. Stillness is not about becoming robotic. It's about moving with intention. It's about being present in your body, aware of your energy, and mindful of the signals you send before you ever open your mouth. Even something as simple as how you enter a room can shift the dynamic. Do you rush in, scanning the room, nervously trying to find your place? Or do you walk in with quiet confidence, shoulders back, eyes forward, fully present in your step? One approach seeks acceptance. The other already assumes it. Eye contact is another powerful aspect of stillness. When you maintain calm, steady eye contact, not aggressive or invasive, but grounded and sincere, you create an invisible line of connection. You show that you are not intimidated, not distracted, not trying to escape the moment. This makes people feel seen, and it makes you seem powerful without having to assert anything directly. Breathing also plays a huge role. Shallow, rapid breathing indicates nervousness and signals a lack of control. Deep, measured breathing, even if unnoticed, calms your nervous system and subtly communicates stability. The way you breathe affects your energy, your voice, and your sense of presence. Now consider how this all ties together. Stillness, when practiced consistently, becomes your baseline. It becomes how you handle pressure, how you carry yourself in conflict, and how you earn trust without needing to sell yourself. In this state, you become more than a person. You become a presence. You can cultivate this presence through daily practice. Start with your body. Sit or stand still for just a few minutes a day without distraction. Pay attention to your breath, your posture, your thoughts. Then apply this awareness to conversations. The next time you feel the urge to interrupt, move unnecessarily or over-explain, pause. Practice restraint. Be deliberate in how you respond. Over time, people will start to notice a shift. You won't just be someone who talks with confidence. You'll radiate it. You'll command rooms not with volume, but with energy. You'll become the person others look to when things are uncertain because you're the one who remains steady. In a noisy world, stillness is rare, and what's rare becomes powerful. So remember, presence isn't about performing, it's about grounding. It's about walking into a space and letting your calm energy say what words never could. I am in control and I don't need to prove it. 5. The power of leaving things unsaid. One of the most underrated yet powerful tools of presence and influence is something few ever talk about: the power of unfinished energy. It's the silence after the storm, the tension left in the room, when someone exits without saying goodbye. It's the emotional echo that lingers not because of what was said, but because of what was left unsaid. In a world obsessed with closure, resolution, and tying up every conversation neatly, leaving something unfinished is a bold and deliberate act. It's the psychological equivalent of an open loop, something the human mind must revisit. And when used strategically, this concept can give you a subtle but lasting grip on people's attention and thoughts. Let's unpack this idea. Think back to a moment in your life when someone walked away from a conversation without giving you the reaction or answer you expected. Maybe they didn't defend themselves. Maybe they didn't apologize. Maybe they didn't even say goodbye. That silence likely bothered you far more than if they had shouted or explained. Why? Because it left a gap, a psychological discomfort. And that discomfort is powerful. The Stoics understood this power well. Their teachings emphasized not only silence, but the restraint to leave things unresolved when resolution isn't necessary or productive. This wasn't about evasion, it was about mastery. The ability to hold back when every part of you wants to react is a signal of deep inner control. When you walk away without closure, especially from a heated exchange, you send a message. I don't owe you a reaction. I'm not here to satisfy your need for resolution. I'm above the game you're trying to play. This unsettles people. It makes them reflect, and in many cases, it forces them to see their own behavior more clearly. This is the essence of unfinished energy. It continues to work in your favor long after the moment has passed. Now, this doesn't mean you should walk around ghosting people or avoiding all communication. The key here is intentionality. You leave things unfinished strategically when the situation calls for it. When someone disrespects you, for example, and expects a fight, your silence and exit leave them confronting their own behavior. When you don't give them the closure they expect, they are forced to deal with the consequences internally. You're not giving them emotional closure, you're giving them space for self-reflection. And in doing so, you remain in control of the narrative. This technique is not just for personal confrontation. In leadership, unfinished energy is a masterstroke. Imagine you're mentoring someone and you pose a challenging question. Then you don't answer it for them. You let them think. You let them wrestle with it. That lingering uncertainty pushes them to grow or consider negotiation. Walking away from a deal without desperation, without over-explaining, plants a seed in the other person's mind. Why didn't they chase me? Are they confident they'll get better? Did I miss something? That vacuum creates interest, and interest drives influence. Unfinished energy also preserves your dignity. Often people over-explain in an effort to be understood or liked. But the more you try to wrap things up neatly for others, the more you give away your power. You don't need to justify every move. You don't need to respond to every comment. Sometimes, walking away, calmly, deliberately, is the most powerful statement you can make. This concept also ties into mystery, and mystery is magnetic. When people can't fully figure you out, they stay curious. They keep thinking about what you meant, what your silence implied, what your last words were leading to. You remain alive in their mind, not because you talked too much, but because you left something behind, something open. To use unfinished energy effectively, ask yourself in each interaction, does this situation actually require a final word from me? Am I reacting to satisfy my ego, or would silence say more? What effect will my absence, my restraint, or my pause have? It's not about being manipulative. It's about being intentional with your presence. About realizing that you don't always need to finish the sentence for it to land. That sometimes the silence after you leave is more impactful than anything you could have said while staying. In the end, unfinished energy teaches one of life's great truths. Sometimes, the most powerful move is to leave people wondering. In the end, what defines your presence isn't how loudly you speak, it's how deeply you're rooted in yourself. True power isn't about dominating conversations, proving your point, or constantly seeking validation. It's about restraint, discipline, and the ability to project strength without ever needing to raise your voice. When you master silence, you begin to see the world differently. You no longer react to every trigger. You no longer feel the need to be understood by everyone. And most importantly, you no longer allow external chaos to dictate your inner peace. Presence isn't created by chance. It's cultivated through intention. Every moment you choose calm over chaos, stillness over panic, and wisdom over impulse, you sharpen that presence. It becomes your armor in a world that thrives on distraction and noise. So as you walk through life, remember this. The most magnetic people don't chase attention. They attract it. Not by being loud, but by being centered. Not by performing, but by simply being. Thank you for watching. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe and join this community of calm, focused individuals mastering the art of presence. Your journey to becoming unshakable begins not when you speak, but when you choose not to.